Welcome back to the farm for another project. If it's your first time, I hope you enjoy. So I got a couple of orders recently for some 3D topographical maps, but I've also had a lot of guys on the groups, on the CNC groups, asking how to make these 3D maps. So this can be a little longer video than usual. It's gonna be a little more of a tutorial along with watching me build my most recent order. So let's head inside the shop. I'll show you the slab we're gonna be working with and let's get started. So here's the slab of cherry we're going to be working with. So this is actually 2 pieces of 10-inch wide cherry, and we're really going to put my joinery to a test here, because right here in the center I really tried to book match this the best that I could, and actually once you kind of sand it down you really can't even see the joint. So carving a 3D carve into this, we're really going to test that and see how everything holds up. Now, because of how we're going to space this out, we're going to have St. Helens and Adams will be down here, and Rainier is going to be up here with a valley running in between. So that's why I try to kind of do this lighter color here. So hopefully it all works out. Again, we're going to really see if my joinery holds up, because this will be a true test to it. So let's get this on the machine and let's get it started. Alright guys, so here comes for the tutorial part on how to actually get these carved. Hopefully this will work out here. So just open up whatever internet browser you're going to use, and you're going to want to open up touch terrain. So when you come up to the touch terrain, this is going to be the first screen that you're going to see. So you can see you can go pretty much anywhere around the world. What we're going to be focusing on today is going to be up over here in the northwestern corner of the United States. So we're going to click on that. Now this is just going to bring you close. It's not going to bring you exactly where you actually clicked the first time out. So just kind of follow the directions, which is hold the, I believe it's the Alt key and zoom out here. So now you've zoomed out, you're going to want to kind of get in the area you want. Like I said, we're coming over here for in the Seattle area. So there's a couple different things that this customer wants on this particular carve. So the couple requests are, we have a lake down here by the mountainside, which is called Trout Lake, which is right here at the very bottom of the map. The other one we want, which is Mayfield Lake, which is right here at the edge of this map. And then we want to have all 3 peaks. So we have Rainier, St. Helens, and Adams. So now that we kind of have the general area of what we want, now we're going to come to the right hand part of the screen and we're going to click recenter the box on the map. Now when we do that, that brings in this red square. So this is going to be your actual workspace. So now you can kind of move this in and kind of dial it in accordingly of everything that you want to have on it. So we want to make sure we go to the edge of the water here. We want to make sure we are including the bottom part of the lake down here. And then we can shrink down the size. We don't need all this excess up top, and we don't need all this excess in the back. So now that we have kind of the general area that we're looking for here, now on the other side of the screen again, we've got a couple different things you're going to choose from. So the first drop down here, which is going to be for the CNC, you're actually going to pick the overall size of your machine. Now I do CNC large because my machine will do 4 feet by 32 inches. If you have a smaller desktop, you may want to change that size. Now the nozzle diameter, which is the next one down, that's just for 3D printing. We're not going to worry anything with that. Now to come down a couple more lines you're going to have right here, which is your model base thickness. So you can actually pick the thickness of the base of whatever piece of wood you're going to be using. I actually skip right past that and I go straight to this vertical exaggeration. By vertical exaggeration, you're just showing how high the peaks are. So I like to do my vertical exaggeration at 1 inch, because I know I'm going to be carving this in a 2-inch slab, so that 1 inch will be from the highest point on the peak, which I'm sure is going to be Rainier, to the lowest part down here at the bottom of one of these valleys is going to be 1 inch of overall thickness. So now that I have that selected, I'm just going to come right down here and go export the selected area. You're going to get this little train little thing here kind of working on it as it's processing this file. So we already got the STL. So now what we're going to do is we're going to download this zip file, and we're going to let that kind of come in. So while that's downloading, if you have to come back and make small adjustments, there's kind of a nice link down here, and I didn't know they had this until recently. If you click this and copy and paste that, so if you need to come back and make small adjustments, you can make adjustments to what you already have, not having to start all over again. Since you have a whole map of the world, it's kind of hard to come back to it. So now that we know we have it downloaded, we're just going to minimize these screens here, and we're going to open up Vectric. Now I'm using VCarve Pro. I think I'm at 11.554, I think is the one I'm using. I haven't updated to the new version because I like everything that this has and it works perfectly for me. So now what we're going to do is we're going to import our 3D model. So you're going to come down to your second tab here for your modeling tab, and in the upper left corner is your import component. So we're going to click on that, And now we're going to open up our downloads. Oh, we didn't move it over yet. Okay, so let's try this. So we need to go downloads. Okay, so here's our zip file. So now you open up your zip file, and you only want the one that's a 3D object. So we're going to take and copy that 3D object over here into my CNC folder. So now let's try importing that again. There it is. All right. So once you've imported it, now you kind of get a first look of what your file is going to look like. So we can see that we have all the 3 peaks we want. We can see that the lake we wanted down here, and the other lake here is on the edge of the map. So now these are the adjustments on bringing the model in. So you want to always make sure that your XYZ ratio is locked in. Otherwise, you're going to either shrink your Z or going to shrink your X, and everything's not going to look really nice, especially since you're working with 3D. So what I do is I like to choose my Z height. And we know that I want my Z height on this to be 1 inch. So I'm just going to click at 1 inch. So you can see it's going to make the other parts of this are going to be a lot smaller. Now you're just going to click apply. So the red box here is my workspace, and this model right here is going to be what's going to be imported. So the next thing we want to do is go to position and import. Now here's where you're going to select the actual depth below your carve. Now I just leave it at the standard 1 inch below it because I'm going to change everything once we import this and kind of manipulate it the way that we want. So now we're going to click import, and then we'll go to our 2D view. So now if we go here, you can see this is what the overall carving here. So I do mine is 24 inches by 24 inches whenever I start, just so I have an idea to work with. Now we know we want the overall size of this for this customer to be 16 inches. So then we're going to go to our selected size, and because I know my X and Y axis now is going to be linked, so I can just change this to 16 inches and hit enter. So now it's going to bring up to the size that I want. Overall length and width is now the size that I want. So now what we're going to do is now we're going to adjust how we actually have the Z height. So if you look on the 3D view, so this is just a preview of what it could look like. So you can see how tall these peaks look. Everything's really kind of exaggerated. They're down in the valley, all the other mountain peaks. Just looks amazing. I really like the way that's coming out. So now you're going to come over to your toolpath, and you're going to select the engraving, and you're going to do your roughing pass. So your 3D roughing tool is kind of the stacked one over here. So you click on that. So now is where you're going to start importing and changing everything on this. So the position, so gap above the model is going to be 0. So we're going to set our overall model thickness is 1 inch. So now right here it shows we have a 1 inch thickness of our model. We have a 2 inch slab, so now I have an inch to work with. So gap above the model, if you have this little meter here, you can take this up or down. So I will actually take this, and I want to where the model is just down below. So we've got 0.04. You can take it all the way up to 0 depending on what you have for the peaks. But remember, if the peak come to a very sharp point, you're going to want to have this down just a little bit so you can carve and get the very top of that peak. So we'll just take this down to 0.04 for the over the top of this. Now here's the rest of these axes. You're going to want to pick your Z clearance for your bits moving up between each carve. I have mine moving fairly closely when I'm going through the material, so I have mine set at 0.2, and then I have my gap above the material is going to be 0.8 of an inch. Now you can change this if you have a really deep carve that you're doing. You're going to want to change that. It'll save your toolpath time because every time that bit moves, it goes 0.8 of an inch above each time that it goes to a different point. So that's how you can save some carving thickness time. So now we're going to click OK. Now you want to click on the model boundary, which is the very upper selector here, and then select your tool bit. So I'm going to use a 1/4 inch down cut, and then we're going to calculate our rough carve. So now we have that. So now I'm going to preview all my tool paths. So it's going to show as it clears. So this is why I wanted to leave that little gap. So I get the very top part of those peaks as it's going through on the first level of the carve. So now we've kind of rendered and we kind of see how everything's going to work out, and everything looks like it's going to fit nice. So now we're going to go back to our 2D. So now we're going to come back and we're going to do our finishing toolpath, which is kind of looks like half a globe that's all smoothed over. Now you're going to choose your bit that you use. Now for this particular carve, I'm going to be using a 1/8 inch ball nose, which is kind of my go-to whenever I'm working on these 3D carves. It gives me really nice detail, and actually really keeps down on a lot of the little fuzzies and little imperfections. And let me see where I have my 1/8 inch. Bear with me here, trying to find bought a whole bunch of new bits, so now I have to find where I have my 1/8 inch. Okay, so now that we have our ball nose selected, so you want to select raster. I found that this gives you the cleanest, it's going to remove the most amount of lines, and just give you really the kind of the cleanest finish. Now the other thing you want to do is on your bit, I like to have mine step over at 10%. You can go less than that. I think the 10% works good on this 1/8 inch because it doesn't leave any lines behind and really picks up some good detail. It is going to change the amount of time it's going to be on your machine depending on how much your step over is and depending on the size of that ball nose you're going to use as well. So we're just going to go to 10%. And then we're going to calculate. And this one's going to take a while to calculate because you're going with such a small step over a larger area. So now that we have that, now we're going to go ahead and preview this selected toolpath. And now you're going to see how much longer it's going to take to really come through and kind of clean out this detail. So now from here, as this is going through, there's a couple different ways you can go about cutting this out of the slab. So you can go through ahead and do a toolpath if you have an extra large 2-inch bit for removing it. I actually bought a guitar engraving bit, which works really well. It's extra long, and I got that off of IDC Woodcrafts. They make really nice bits, so if you're looking for a bit to use for something like this, I'll put a link in the description to them. You can click on their website and order those. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another toolpath, so then I know that this is going to be cut out exactly where I want. So we're just going to add a square. We're just going to click on this upper corner, and we're just going to drag it to the other bottom here. And we're going to zoom in to make sure that our square is right where I want it. So we'll move that so it's right here on the edge. Zoom out and over, make sure that we're getting all of our lines right where we want them. Same thing on this end, extend this over. And one last double check up here on top. Okay, so now we have everything going around our border. We have our lines where we want. So now we can go back to our toolpath here again. So on this one, we're going to do a profile. And what we want to do is cut on the outside of that line so we don't lose any of that detail we picked. And we're going to have this cut all the way through. So go 2 inches. We use our down cut and calculate. So now we're going to preview this path. So now after everything gets all machined out, I can actually go through and go ahead and cut the piece. And then if I double click here, get rid of all the extras. So now you can see what the finished map is going to look like. You have the raised peaks, you have all the detail from all the valleys and crevices. So now that we have it, let's download it to the machine and let's get carving. Now you can see we've roughed it out with that 1/4 inch. You got real big Rainier right here. We got Adams in the back. We got St. Helens in the front. So now we're going to swap over to our 1/8 inch bull nose, and we'll do the finishing cut. All right, 6.5 hours in, the carve is all finished. A couple of things that I'm really excited about. You can't even tell where I actually did the glue up. My joinery just held up perfectly, which I'm really excited about. The other thing is, if you look at these, you can see St. Helens here. You can actually see where it erupted. You can see the detail we got in Adams. And look at the great detail of Rainier here, standing up tall and proud. That came out really, really awesome. Let's get this off the machine and we'll get the frame done. Okay, so now that I have the board trimmed down on the edges here, now we're going to come through and just kind of get down in some of these real deep crevices here. Sometimes there's little fuzzies that kind of get stuck behind. I just like to hit the whole thing to make sure everything's nice and perfectly clean and nice and smooth. I'll even take some 320 grit by hand and just kind of smooth out some of these ridges if I feel any lines in them. Looks like we had a little bit down here. We really want to get nice and smooth because we want this thing to look perfect before we put oil on it, because as soon as you put oil on it, it's going to really magnify all your imperfections if you don't get it done ahead of time. So I've got these little sanding discs that I get off Amazon. You buy like 30 or 40 at a time. And these I found work perfect for these 3D carves. And I want to say that these are 220 grit. So then you can really get a nice finish with them and really kind of work down in those grooves. And these do just kind of wear out, so it makes it real nice and easy to get down in there. So let's get this thing sanded out and then we'll get the frame going. Now you probably saw me keep rotating that around. Now the reason for that is you can actually catch light a little different as you're going down in all these really deep spots. You want to make sure that you really sand everything perfect. So that's as you rotate it and the light hits different things, you'll actually see little fuzzies that you missed. But now that we've gone all the way around, I'm really happy with all the detail and how smooth everything looks. I really love how you can see even where St. Helens here, where it erupted, the detail even shows where it kind of came out and came down through the valley. So and we have Rainier right here at the end. Standing up nice and tall and proud. Super, super clean. So now let's set this aside. Let's go get a chunk of black walnut and let's figure out how big of a frame we're going to make. Okay, so I just picked out a piece of black walnut. It has some really pretty character to it. I think that'll come out real nice on the frame. So now I'm just going to try to figure out if this thickness is going to work or if I'm going to run it through my planer and bring it down a little bit. Now, I don't really have a set way that I like to do my frames with these type of topographical maps. I kind of let the wood dictate how the frame looks. You know, sometimes if, you know, like the last one that I just did for a wedding, there was only one mountain range through the middle. So I thought it looked nicer to have kind of a raised border. So it kind of created a little bit more of shadows to kind of give it more depth. But because this one has so many peaks and everything on it, I kind of want those to highlight and kind of stand out. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pick the shortest end of this board, which is less than an inch, right about 0.8 of an inch, and set this up. And I really think that going with a shallow border on this one and making these kind of stand out, I think is going to be a better way to go. I think that's really going to kind of make that texture kind of pop. So just kind of looking where I'm at, what I'll do is I'll take my pencil here and I'm going to mark pretty much where I want the low spot to be. And because I'm going to have to run this, make sure I'm nice and square, so I'll run it through the joiner first. I'll get two nice edges on it. And then I'm going to run it through my thickness planer, and we'll get it down to that thickness. Now I'll go in small steps just to make sure that visually it's like what I like. So I'll take a couple pieces off, and I'll come back, check it again, put it up, and just kind of see how it kind of feels, and then we kind of go from there. So let's get this board planed down and continue on with the frame. Okay, so I got the black walnut ripped down to the sizes where I think it's going to work the best. Now what I like to do now is I always give myself about an extra 3 or 4 inches on both sides. Two reasons for that. One, for defects, you know, you're going to have planer snipe and things like that on the ends to deal with. But really the main reason I like to give myself extra is I kind of like to look at the different flow, the different textures and the grains, and kind of put things where I think they look the best. So I give myself a little leeway that I don't have to put them just right where they're square. I have some room where I can kind of move it around. Like this piece of black walnut here, I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but it kind of has some waves coming through it and some of that sapwood, which I just love that with black walnut. That wave right there, I'm going to use that so it kind of looks like flow of the water path. So as the water flows through these canyons, it's going to be flowing down this direction. So I want that flow to kind of follow that same path. So I've got this one with the sapwood, and then same thing with this one. I don't know again if it's going to show up, but that sapwood kind of has a wavy curve. So I'm just going to have those waves go with the flow of the water and kind of lay these out where I think I'm going to get the best character from it. And I think that right there. So you can see where excess I actually have is nothing like it would be that piece of wood. So now I have a little bit of leeway. So it's always better to have more room and be able to move around. So now I'm going to cut these two down to size, and I'm actually going to go ahead and glue and install these two because I want them to stay exactly where I like them. And then I'll work on continuing the top part of the frame with these two. And same thing, we'll kind of lay those out to get the best character that we have. So let's get these cut down to size. Okay, so all that back and forth, the reason for that is what I like to do when I'm working on a joint that I know I want it to be perfect is I like to kind of work up to my cuts. I don't like taking a huge chunk out of it and kind of hoping for the best, just do one cut, because if you get a little tiny bit of blade deflection or anything like that, now you don't have this perfect cut and now you're starting over again. So when you're working with something expensive like black walnut or really high-end wood, last thing you want to do is cut a little too much and then things don't look right, and then you're either having to trim the piece you're working on or you have to throw away that scrap piece. And just take your time the first time, just do it right. You know, measure twice, cut once, you know, I think is the old saying. And you don't have to put a ton of clamp pressure either. I'm just putting this just so it's snug. The wood glue is going to hold. We're still going to put a couple of screws in here to make sure it's not going to move. So this is just to make sure everything stays lined up on this end. So we'll come back in an hour after this glue actually has a chance to harden, and then we're going to turn it, and then we'll go ahead and work on the other two sides. So we'll be back in about an hour. All right guys, been about an hour. I just took this out of the clamps and I rotated it. I already cut the two new end pieces, so we are going to put these ends on here. I've already kind of figured out which ones I like where. Now one thing I do with this side, because it's easier for me to trim this off once everything is actually glued together. So I leave myself about a 32nd of an inch on both sides, so that way I can come back and I can square it up with my table saw or even with just my sander later. That way if there's anything that's just not quite perfect, I can make everything still come out looking perfectly square on these frames, because that's really what I want the visual to look like is perfect. Once this actually sets for about an hour, we'll come back, we'll put an 1/8 inch roundover bit around the whole outside, just kind of ease the edges on the border of it, and then we're going to turn this over. We'll make sure the bottom of it's nice and square and level. We'll get our logo put on it, and then my favorite part of any project is we're going to get some finish on this thing and really make it shine. So let's get this frame finished up. Of course, now this is always every woodworker's favorite part, and we're going to be putting oil on this thing to really get the color and characters to pop. Now anytime I do anything with black walnut, I just finish it with walnut oil. It just gives it a really nice finish. It really makes the colors nice and rich. So let's go ahead and let's pour some of this on here and really get this map to kind of come to life here. Man, that really brought the color out. I'm loving that. All right, let's let this sit for about 15 minutes. We'll come wipe the excess off and see if we're gonna need to get another coat. All right, now look at how much that walnut really made that detail just pop on this thing. So we got Rainier right here. You make your way over. Then here's St. Helens. And then we have Adams right here. So we're gonna let this thing sit overnight, and then we'll add my logo to the back and we'll get ready to ship it out. Okay, so for this topographical map, the customer actually requested to have the little mile marker, you know, little 10 miles, and then also the exaggeration, which is 1 inch. And I'm gonna go ahead and add my logo to a little piece of black walnut we're gonna put on the back. So you guys can watch the laser engraver while I get the hooks installed, and we're gonna finish this thing up. All right, all done and ready to go. Now we can go install this on the back and finish this project up. And here we are all finished up, guys. We got all the oil on it. It's been oiled twice and all sealed up real nice. That cherry and black walnut just comes together incredible. The detail on all these mountains doing that 1 inch exaggeration just makes it incredible. We've got Rainier right there. You've got St. Helens here. You can actually even see where the eruption was. And we got Adams up here in the top corner. just came together incredible. Well, I hope they really enjoy it, because another fun project all ready to deliver. Well, thanks for sticking around for another long video, guys. These tutorials take quite a bit longer than usual. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to give it a thumbs up, and feel free to share. If you have any other questions or comments, please put those down below. I'll do what I can to answer them for you. If you really enjoyed this project, you want to join me for all my other projects, all my other adventures, consider hitting the subscribe button. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you around.